Let's jump right into this explainer because we're going to unpack what is truly shaping up to be a multi-layered, ticking time bomb in the commodities market. And honestly, most people are completely missing it. We're talking about silver today, but absolutely not the way you're used to hearing about it. We are looking at a market where undeniable physical reality is on a direct collision course with financial engineering. And man, that clock is ticking loudly. There's a brilliant quote that basically captures our entire core theme today, which is that nature does not care about spreadsheets. Wall Street can trade paper contracts all day long, right? But at the end of the day, a metal literally has to be physically pulled from the earth. And the cold geological truth that financial markets are just completely ignoring right now is that we are simply running out of the physical metal we need to power the modern world. To really set the stakes right out of the gate, I want you to consider this staggering number, 180 million. That is the 180 million ounce silver deficit we saw just last year alone. How did we actually get there? Well, the world consumed over 1 billion ounces of silver, but miners were only able to pull about 820 million ounces out of the ground. You do the math. That gap is not some theoretical projection for the future. It is a massive, tangible deficit happening right now, and it's been growing for 3 straight years. Section 1. Not just gold's cousin, the industrial reality. To understand exactly why this massive deficit is happening, we first have to totally dismantle a huge misconception. The old mainstream narrative still kind of treats silver like it's just gold's cheaper cousin. You know, jewelry, antique coins, maybe your grandmother's silverware, but that version of silver died a decade ago. The new reality is that silver is an absolutely indispensable industrial and strategic metal. It's literally inside the smartphone in your hand right now. It's in your solar panels, your electric vehicles, and those highly advanced semiconductors that are powering artificial intelligence. The entire modern technological world completely falls apart without it. Section 2. The triple demand explosion. Tech sector pressures. So, 3 major macroeconomic forces are accelerating this huge supply gap we were just talking about. Silver basically sits at the absolute critical intersection of these exploding industries. It's the physical backbone of the green energy revolution through solar, it's totally vital to the electric vehicle transition, and it's a necessary component in the explosive AI boom. All 3 of these massive pillars are putting immense pressure on the silver supply at the exact same time. What's truly fascinating here is the sheer scale of solar demand alone. Right now, solar energy is chewing through over 200 million ounces of silver a year, which is crazy because that number was practically zero just 15 years ago. But get this, by 2030, analysts expect solar alone to consume over 400 million ounces per year. That is more than half of the world's total silver mining output today, being swallowed up by just one single industry. And because physics simply doesn't negotiate, silver is the most conductive metal on Earth. You literally cannot swap it out for cheaper metals like copper or aluminum in these photovoltaic cells. But it doesn't stop with solar. You really have to think of this as a tech black hole. When you add in the tens of millions of new electric vehicles hitting the road, the demand just skyrockets. EVs use vastly more complex, silver-heavy sensors and electrical systems than traditional gas cars. And the kicker, once that silver goes into an EV, it's locked away for 15 plus years. It's essentially gone from the recyclable market. Then you layer on the artificial intelligence revolution. AI data centers require an unimaginable density of chips, thermal pastes, and printed circuit boards, all of which absolutely demand silver. So you have this explosive consumption of a metal that literally takes millions of years to form in the Earth's crust. Section 3, the silent supply collapse. Mining deficits. Okay, so if demand is this incredibly high, why aren't we just digging up more of it? Well, the answer actually lies in byproduct mining. Roughly 70% of all silver produced in the entire world comes as a byproduct. Miners aren't usually going out looking for silver. They're looking for primary base metals like copper, lead, or zinc, and the silver just kind of comes up with it. This means when base metal mining slows down, which, by the way, is happening right now due to rising energy costs and falling ore grades, silver output automatically and silently collapses right alongside it. And that happens regardless of how badly the solar or AI industries need it. And the underlying geology is honestly getting worse. We are looking at plummeting ore grades globally. Miners are basically digging deeper, spending way more money, and producing less silver per ton of rock than ever before in recorded mining history. Combine that brutal fact with the reality that there have been 0 major discoveries of a world-class silver deposit in over a decade. The easy, shallow, high-grade deposits are completely gone, leaving only these deep, extremely expensive, and heavily politically risky projects. And look, even if a massive deposit were discovered tomorrow, it wouldn't fix the deficit today. The typical mine development lag totally explains why. It takes 5 to 10 years to take a mine from discovery through the absolute nightmare of permitting and capital allocation to actual physical production. For years, investors basically forced mining companies into this massive capital destruction cycle, demanding they cut exploration budgets just to return cash to shareholders. Because those projects were canceled years ago, the new supply we desperately need today simply does not exist. The window to effectively respond to today's massive demand surge is already firmly closed. Section 4, Paper Phantoms versus Physical Reality, the Market Disconnect. This brings us to a deeply fascinating and honestly kind of dark dynamic. The absolute absurdity of the silver market is that the price isn't actually set by the physical metal changing hands. Nope, it's set on paper exchanges by futures contracts. Right now, it's estimated that for every single ounce of physical silver sitting in a vault, actually backing these trades, there are anywhere from 50 to 100 paper ounces being traded. It's basically a massive game of high-stakes musical chairs. It works completely fine when it's just Wall Street speculating, but when a solar panel manufacturer actually demands physical delivery of the real metal, that entire paper system faces a terrifying reckoning. And if you're sitting there thinking price suppression is just some fringe internet conspiracy theory, you really need to look at the legal history. The suppression of silver's price by large financial institutions using massive short positions is heavily documented. Just as one example, in 2020 alone, JP Morgan paid nearly $1 billion to settle Department of Justice charges specifically related to precious metals manipulation. So this is a very real, persistent tug of war between physical market realities and immense financial power. Furthermore, let's look at the historical angle for a second. The current gold to silver ratio sits at roughly 80 to 1. Historically, over centuries, it takes about 15 to 30 ounces of silver to equal the value of 1 ounce of gold. Today, it takes roughly 80 to 90 ounces. This crazy ratio shows just how wildly undervalued silver is as a monetary asset right now. And history shows us that every single time this rubber band has stretched this far, it has snapped back, and often very violently. Section 5, the impending supply shock. When the system breaks. So, what exactly happens when these massive tectonic plates, explosive industrial demand on one side, and a suppressed paper-heavy market on the other finally snap? Well, we're actually already seeing major cracks in the wall. The warning signs are literally flashing bright red right now. Above-ground buffer inventories and exchanges like the COMEX are just vanishing. Industrial delivery times are stretching from a standard 2 weeks out to 6 entire months. We are seeing major sovereign wealth funds and nations like China and India aggressively hoarding and accumulating the shrinking physical supply. And in some commercial markets, premiums on physical metal have actually jumped 40% over the paper spot price. If the price of silver actually breaks through certain technical levels, it triggers what's known as a classic short squeeze. Those massive institutional short positions we talked about suddenly become an existential problem for them. To cover their massive losses, those institutions are forced to buy the physical metal, which drives the price even higher, forcing even more buying, and ultimately creating a violent, exponential feedback loop. Given the tiny size of the physical market compared to those massive paper positions, a squeeze here would be historically unprecedented. And the crazy thing is, we actually saw a tiny glimpse of this parabolic price action not that long ago. Back in 2011, physical demand briefly overwhelmed the paper markets, and silver skyrocketed from $18 to nearly $50 in just a matter of months. But here is the absolute crucial takeaway. When that happened in 2011, the global supply deficit and the world's industrial dependency on silver were only a tiny fraction of what they are today. We didn't have the current solar boom, we didn't have the massive EV mandates, and we certainly didn't have the AI data center revolution back then. The physical reality always wins eventually. You simply cannot build a solar panel out of a paper futures contract. So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. Does the sheer force of this industrial deficit break silver past $100 an ounce? Or can the massive financial institutions keep the lid on this ticking time bomb indefinitely? When will it finally detonate? And more importantly, who will be prepared when it does?